Hello interwebs. This is a video how to change the oil on a 2008 Honda Civic EX coupe. This would be a coupe, but the directions are the same if you have a sedan. So, number one, lift up the hood. Prop it up correctly. Then locate the engine oil fill. That would be where you'd be putting the new oil in. That would be the plug where you take it off and fill it. This would be the dipstick where you'd check the level afterwards to make sure it's to the right level. Next step would be to jack it up, which I'm going to do, and I will be right back. Okay, I have jacked up the vehicle. I have a Craftsman hydraulic jack that I used to jack it up. You hit the frame, which I'm a tad off, I'm not even centered, but you hit the frame right there. You can see where it's plastic cover and it goes to the frame, and there's a little teeny dimple where it's made to have the jack sit on it. So that's where you need to jack it up from if you're doing it from the front. Note to safety. I have had a vehicle follow me before. It is no fun. So I would highly recommend that you get other jacks. It doesn't even have to be resting on it. This needs to be under it in case the other jack fails. And you can put them on both sides so that, like I said, if it fails, you won't die, which I highly recommend. Alright, next step. Drain the oil. You will need a drain pan like this one, or if you have a nicer drain pan like this one, which will allow you to drain it into there, and then it has a nozzle that it can pour out of into the waste oil bin. Either way, you also need a 17mm wrench or socket. So, if you go underneath the vehicle, if you go past the jack, there's the exhaust. More to the passenger side, you will see the engine oil pan. It sends engine oil with a point to the bolt. That's gold one right there, the big gold one. The one that's furthest down with the blue. You put the 17mm and take that loose and drain all the oil. So make sure you have the pan underneath of it as soon as you crack that bolt. Shouldn't be tough to crack. It doesn't have a lot of pressure on it. It shouldn't be tightened that much. But one thing I do like to use is one of these so that I can hold it on the wrench side and use this rubber mallet and kind of just tap it. Makes life a lot easier than hitting it with your hand, getting your hand bruised up, etc., etc. I'm going to drain the oil now. Okay, this is the drain plug that I'd show you. This is the 17mm bolt. You can check and make sure the threads look good. Don't drop it or it can be bent like that. Get bent. You can also make the threads messed up and make it hard to get back in the motor. You can also get replacement ones of these, but just don't ruin the original, and you shouldn't have to. You can also get special drain plugs with magnets in the end. I don't believe this one is one of those, and it's supposed to technically collect the metal shavings in your oil if there is any, but if you have that, you probably have bigger problems than what kind of oil plug you have. Okay, now time to replace the filter. There's the old oil. Nice and black and old. You see white bubbles in there, or white little curds. You might have a blown head gasket. The oil plug bolt is 29 foot-pounds of torque, so that is less than half the torque of your wheel, your lug nut torque. So just a just a good tightening amount, the same size that it was when you took it off, the same amount of torque. Now get the filter. There's a pity bowl. She's always helping out. Get the filter here. I like to use these Bosch filters. They've worked really well. They have 99% contaminants filtration, so that's a pretty good amount. Alright. How to remove the oil filter. So you can buy a tool. There's one that looks like this that just basically seizes up around, grips it with grip, and you can take it off, the oil filter off. It also pivots like this if it's a tight space. They also sell them with a attachment that just goes on the very bottom of the filter, on this part of the filter with the little humps on the bottom. Showing you the new filter. It has little kind of a hexagon humps on it, and it fits right over that. But most of the time I just use my hands and twist it off. If it's not over tightened, then you should be able to get it off fine. Let me show you where it is. Okay, so the oil filter, if you see the front of the vehicle, if you go under it, where the oil pan was, a little bit more to the passenger side, there's the filter. As you can see, it's a Bosch as well. That's always the filter I buy. And you should be able to twist that sucker off. Do put the oil drain pan below it though, because there is oil that's going to come out as soon as you crack that. So I removed the filter and disposed of the old one. One thing I wanted to show you guys was, it's good to look here where it screws on. You can see that outer ring where the rubber gasket makes contact to the motor. Sometimes if it was installed incorrectly, which I'm going to show you in the next step, the rubber gasket will stick there. And then you install the new oil filter and it's a gasket on a gasket, which of course doesn't seal, and then it leaks everywhere. You're wondering why. So it's good to look right here. Make sure, maybe clean it with a paper towel, a clean paper towel, before you put the new one on. I was also going to mention, if you start the motor at any time between when you drain the old oil and you fill the new oil, you're going to be doing an engine change versus a oil change. So here's the new filter. As you can see, if you shine in there, there is some oil in there, but if you pre-fill this filter, which it's actually sucked a lot of the oil in already since I filled it, but if you pre-fill the filter, that means the engine is not going for as long of a time without oil, because it takes a little bit of time for this filter to fill up, which means while that's happening, your engine's getting no oil. So if you come over here and you pre-prime this filter and fill it up, and I'm going to do it again before I install it, but because I filled it to the top and it's already sucked a bunch of the oil into the filter. It's about a third full now, so I'm going to fill it up again. But you want to fill that up before, so your car gets oil right away. Also, you want to, like I talked about in the previous step where it was installed incorrectly, you want to get the oil, touch it on your finger and run it around the edge, around the ring of this new rubber gasket, and make sure it's real lubed up with a bunch of oil. What that's going to do is it's going to make it so that this new filter goes on nice and smooth, and it doesn't bunch up or get in a weird position with the gasket and then leak. And it's also going to make it so it comes off easy and doesn't stick to your motor next time when you do the next oil change. So I'm going to fill that reservoir up the rest of the way and then throw that filter on. Alright, I put the filter on, and basically you're gonna tighten that with your hand. Give it a real good tightening with your arm, not the absolute tightest you can get it, but equivalent to how you took it off. A good tightening with your arm. I usually don't use the tool at all. For a bigger vehicle I probably would, but not for this oil filter. Anyhow, next step is to refill the oil. First step to that would be to lower the vehicle back down. So you're going to remove your save your life jacks on both sides, and then of course drop the hydraulic jack down and drop the vehicle back down, which I'm going to do now. Okay, so now I have lowered the vehicle. She is back on the ground. Now we're going to fill up the oil again. Open up the oil fill reservoir. Sometimes it can be on there pretty good. There we go. If that's all dirty in there, watch it. You're not moving, getting dirt in there or making the dirt fall in. So if that has a bunch of dirt around there or gravel or something, you might want to blow it off first. And now we're going to fill the oil up. Get yourself a funnel. Can be done without a funnel, but you end up making a mess of the motor, that's for sure. And this vehicle takes 5W20 oil, which I have about 3 quarts of 5W20, and I'm going to do the rest of it in 5W30. So you can mix a little bit, but not both of those are just normal oil I'm talking about, not synthetic or anything. So go ahead and start filling it up. I usually put in about 3.5 quarts or so, a little under 4, and then I check the oil level. If you overfill the oil, it can cause other things to fail and other gaskets to fail, so that's bad. So don't overfill the oil. You want to make sure it's filled up exactly to the right, in the right levels. They give you a specification low to high, so within that range. That was about 3 quarts or so, 3.25, and I'm going to fill it up with a little bit more, right under 4 quarts, and then I'm going to check the oil level. Okay, I filled up the oil, and here is the dipstick hole, which I've already taken out the dipstick. These Civics include a plastic dipstick. I noticed the Accord motors have a metal dipstick on them, which I like better because the plastic ones are harder to read. But they have, on the bottom of the plastic ones, they have this honeycomb material. The low, so when it's like this, the very bottom of it would be low to the right. The top of it, when it's in normal position sitting in the motor, which would be on the left end, would be the high. So when you put this in and take it out, the oil will fall. You want the oil to fall within the top or the bottom of that, preferably, right under the top line. You don't want to overfill it because that can cause damage to your motor also. Also, these honeycombs can be a pain to get to read because they're already saturated with oil. So if you put the paper towel on them and press real hard with your fingers, it'll take the oil out of the little mini honeycombs in there, so it's easier to read. So after you do that, then you can go ahead and take a reading and see how much oil you have in the motor and make sure you're in the specification. So I filled it up to what I always fill it up at. It's about it's right under, I don't know if you could see the exact line where it falls, but it's a little bit under the top. It's more than 3/4, but a little under the top. So that's exactly what you want, but keep in mind when you start the motor, the engine oil is going to drop a little bit. So that's the bubbles working their way out of the system, and the filter getting any last empty bubble spaces in there taken up and filled with oil. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that's in good. You want to take your funnel out and tighten the cap back on the overfill, and make sure everything's secure. Start up the motor, let it idle for, you know, about 5 minutes or so, 2 minutes, 5 minutes in that area. Shut it back off, get a couple minutes for the oil to drain completely and get in the bottom of the motor how it is normally with gravity holding it down, not while it's running, and then take a reading again. And if it's dropped a whole bunch, you might want to add some more oil. You want the oil level to be right below the top of that honeycomb, or right on the top of it. Definitely not above the top line, and obviously not below it. After that, you're basically done. Dispose of the oil correctly. Make sure you got your oil check rod here secure. Make sure oil fill plug's secure. Close up the hood, make sure everything's secure, and take a log of when you changed it so you can change it again at the scheduled interval. Usually the people that treat their motors really good do it every 3,000. Other people do it every 5,000. In between 3 to 5,000 is acceptable. I usually do mine at 3 to 4,000. This one right now is a little over 5,000 at the moment. So obviously the longer you go, the dirtier the oil gets and the harder on the motor it is to run. But hope you liked the video, and more to come. Thank you.